Welcome to CH-AI Brews, your go-to podcast for all things AI at the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. I'm your host, Daniel Duggan, with a bachelor's in computer science pursuing a master's in computer science. In each episode, we'll talk about the ways AI is revolutionizing education. We'll explore how AI is transforming teaching, learning, and our community. Whether you're a student, an educator, or simply curious about the future of learning, this podcast is for you.
My name is Jim Glass. I'm the Assistant Vice President of Smart Grid Operations at EPB here in Chattanooga. EPB is the local energy and connectivity organization for Chattanooga. We serve about 200,000 homes in Chattanooga and several surrounding counties in Tennessee and North Georgia. In addition to electricity, we also provide communication services with internet, TV, and phone service, and have been recognized as having the fastest community-wide internet in the country. So that's enough about EPB. As far as the organization that I'm responsible for, developing what we call our smart grid, and this is made up of a number of devices across our system, whether they're sensors or switches or voltage regulators, things like that have much greater capability than what previous devices had, but that also are able to communicate with our control center over EPB's fiber optic network. So we're able to look at the meters on a house and see exactly what the voltage is at every location. We're also able to measure the consumption of each meter every 15 minutes. We're able to measure out on the power lines the voltage and the load that's flowing through each portion of our system every 2 seconds. And that gives our operators a much better picture of exactly what's happening in real time on our electric system. And so when you have a broad area like what EPB serves, which is over 600 miles, having that visibility to exactly what's happening in every corner of the area, and also having the ability to control equipment to improve the voltage or the load or whatever it may be, has really changed the way that we operate the electric system. We're much more proactive in how we manage it than we would have been, say, 15 years ago, and are able to deliver much better service for our customers.
Can you explain a little bit about how AI might fit into that role?
Sure. I think probably one of the things that's interesting, we don't necessarily call it AI, but there is some of the technology that we use in our distribution automation system that, in a sense, is AI. It processes information, it makes decisions, and takes action without operator intervention. Specifically, what happens is if there is a problem on our electric system, like a tree that falls into the lines, these switches are able to sense the problem, open up to isolate the problem to a relatively small area, and then kind of reroute power around it to maintain service to as many customers as possible. And all of that happens in just a few seconds. And the technology basically mimics what our system operators would have done manually, say 12 or 14 years ago.
So the launch of ChatGPT is considered to have put AI, especially generative AI, on the radar for the general public for the first time, even though smartphones, watches, speakers, all were common by 2022, and all of those are a form of artificial intelligence. So is the smart grid technology you've worked with at EPB similar? Is that a form of AI that was in use long before it was called AI?
Yes, I think it is a form of AI. It's not the generative AI that is the more common term today. The distribution automation technology only does what we configure it to do. It doesn't have the ability to learn something new or take new actions, but we've configured it specifically to take action based on the normal processes that might occur in operating the electric system.
So in the future, is generative AI expected to be in use in the kinds of technology used by EPB and other utility companies to manage their power grids?
Yeah, I think it will. The technology is obviously developing very, very quickly. I think what is likely to happen is we'll use the same sensors and switches that we have in place today, but the AI technology will take advantage of those to a greater extent. The other thing that I think is going to be critical for an electric utility or anybody that has a very, very broad service area is having the right kind of communications to use those sensors. And that's what EPB is fortunate to have, our fiber optic communications that covers our entire service area. And I think that'll play a big role in how we deploy artificial intelligence even more.
So your career with public utilities has spanned more than 30 years, which gives a fair amount of time to observe industry trends and advancements. So how would you compare the embrace and adoption of AI technology by energy and telecoms providers to other innovations you've observed?
I think I'll go back to the distribution automation technology and kind of describe what happened there. If you go back 30 years ago when I first started, when there was a problem on the electric system, like a tree that may have fallen into the lines, a breaker at a substation would open up, and then we would send a crew to start driving along the power lines and try to find the problem. And once they found it, they would go up in a bucket truck and open some switches manually to isolate the problem. Then they would drive somewhere else to close a switch to try to restore as many customers as they could while they fixed the wire or whatever the problem was. Over, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago or so, utilities started to deploy remotely controlled switches that allowed system operators in a control center to open or close these switches remotely, but they still had to know kind of where the problem was. So it sped up the restoration process a little bit, but still required a good bit of human intervention. And fast forward to about 2010, that's when we deployed the automated distribution service restoration process that does that exact same functionality. It identifies the problem, isolates the problem, and then restores service all around it. And now that happens in just a few seconds. So I think we'll probably see something similar with AI technology, where it'll start to automate or optimize some of the processes that we do today. I think there'll be other things that it does that are completely different from how we do it today, but I expect it to start by just kind of mimicking the human actions that we take today.
So is AI or smart technology being adopted for other systems at EPB or maybe elsewhere in the public utility field? And if so, can you describe those?
Yeah, I think first just to kind of understand the software applications that we use for customer service or operating the grid and designing, new work orders and things like that. They're pretty massive systems. They are huge investments, and they are a major effort to transition from one system to a new one. So I don't expect there to be like a wholesale replacement of these applications right away, just because it's such a big effort. What I do think is going to happen, and what we've already started to see happen a little bit, is some of our existing software products, their vendors will begin to embed AI technology in their existing products. So they'll identify maybe a function that could utilize AI, build that into their existing product, and then it's almost just kind of a minor upgrade rather than a whole replacement of the system. So I think that's more likely what we'll start seeing. I would throw out one other thing that I thought about is, the data centers that are required to support artificial intelligence require huge amounts of energy. And it's kind of it's a big change from what our industry has experienced over the last 20 years or so. The load growth across the Chattanooga area, but really the whole country, has been relatively slow. As new homes were being built, they had very efficient HVAC systems and good insulation. And as older homes were replacing their air conditioning and heating systems, they had much more efficient systems being put in, and so the increase in the total electric demand was relatively flat. It was growing pretty slowly. Well, the new data centers that are required to support artificial intelligence and several other technologies are really changing that equation. And it's becoming more of a challenge, I think, for electric utilities to try to figure out the best way to serve all of that load. And so hopefully artificial intelligence will help us figure that problem out as well.
How do you and those you work with keep up with the knowledge and new skills needed for EPB to adopt important new technologies?
A lot of ways. There's a lot of new technologies out there, so we have to be mindful of any opportunity to see what they are. I'll give you a few specific examples, though. We have had opportunities to work with UT Chattanooga as well as UT Knoxville on some research projects. We recently did a project with UTC where we worked with a couple of professors and grad students to develop some drone technology that could patrol our power lines, take video and thermal imagery, and then automatically process that imagery so that it would tell us where we had potential problems. And that way we didn't have to sit there and review all these videos and all that kind of stuff. That was a great project, and we've had opportunities to work with UT and UTC on several others. The other thing that has been interesting for us is we developed a relationship with Oak Ridge National Lab back in 2016 and have been able to work with them on several projects to look for ways to apply new technology on our electric system. Had a chance to work with a few other national labs around the country, and there are a few people at EPB that serve on advisory boards for the Department of Energy. And so opportunities like that let us see some of the new technology and innovation that's headed our way. The other things, I mean, this is not unique for the utility industry, but we go to trade shows and things like that where vendors are presenting their new technology or new applications, and that gives us a chance to see the newest as well.
So, given the rapid pace of change involving AI in business, what advice do you have for those in entry-level positions or who are soon to enter the workforce?
I would say never stop learning, number one. Your college diploma is not the end of your education. That would be number one. There's always going to be ways that you can explore new ideas and technology and figure out how to apply them to your job. That makes you a more valuable employee to your company, which creates opportunity, gives you more chances for advancement within the company, but it also makes your job a lot more interesting. Instead of just doing the same thing all the time, look for new ways to accomplish your job functions, make it more efficient or more effective. That's one of the things that I like about working at EPB is we love to try new technology, and it makes the job much more interesting and much more rewarding when you can figure out a new way to solve a problem or to improve service for our customers. That's one of the things I really enjoy doing.
This has been Jim Glass, hosted by Taryn Brooks, and I'm Daniel Duggan. Thanks for tuning in. The music in this podcast is by Blue Dot Sessions. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. You can find this and all episodes of CH-AI Brews at wutc.org/podlab or wherever you get your podcast. And until next time, keep learning and exploring the possibilities of AI.